I I don't know whether to thank Shantanu, a director IITJ, because he pestered me during my social visit to Calcutta that I have to give this talk. I am also thankful to CGCRI director and the CSIR lab from where I'm speaking, because I was worried that I may not be able to speak. I'll not have a good connectivity from home. But I'm surprised that IITJ had so much technical difficulties. I'm not here to praise Indian science, nor I am here to say how great India was 4,000 years back of civilization. We gave the world a zero. Nor I'm going to say and talk about how India solved all the problems of the world, of imagination, of thinking how we could think of a Pushpak Biman or mythological characters giving credit to that. We actually thought of all this. I'm here to tell that in post-independent India, how did it do well? Whether did we do at all? But in my title, I've said proud to be a player and a spectator. I'm very proud that I was born in independent India. I have that advantage. And as Dr. Chidambaram mentioned, that when C.V. Raman got his Nobel Prize, he realized that he's not an Indian. So they were all subject of the British Raj. We had extraordinary theoretical scientists. S.N. Bose, then we had Ramanujam, Meghnad Shah, J.C. Bose, and then experimental scientists, P.C. Ray, J.C. Bose. So sometime I felt I wish I was born 50 years before in Bengal, not in 50s in Bengal, because then I would have had wonderful colleagues of these brilliant minds to interact with. And also, imagine the Tagore, the philosophy, Vivekananda, every possible ideological, great leaders were there. We also had discovery of malarial parasite in Calcutta. We had discovery of cholera toxin by S.N. Day. All this happened very early in India, and when we were still not independent. Cholera toxin was little later than that. Now, my question is, when a young person asks me, every time I give a talk, young people will ask me, sir, why do we have Nobel Prize in India since C.V. Raman? So technically, I'll say the nation was very poor. We have to visualize what was India in 1950s. So I'm lucky that although I did not grow up in Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu, South India, but I had the great opportunity of interacting with the institutions, like Professor G.N. Ramachandran, C.N. Rao, several people, M.M. Sharma, Govind Swarup, R.M. Mashelka. So lots of leaders of Maharashtra and South India who actually made a difference. So I asked myself a question, how could these people, especially GNR or Shanti Sharu Bhatnagar, could imagine of building institution or do science of global nature in a country whose life expectancy was 32 in independence, poverty was everywhere. We did not make even a cycle or an alpine. So I think young generation, I divide this country into post-Maruti and pre-Maruti era. So what I want to tell, if you look at India, it was a very poor country in 1950s. To 70s, we became little moderately developing country. By 19s, we became aspirational nation. And by 2022 or 2020, we are as good as anybody else in the world in doing things. Now, question is, did science and technology play a role? And if so, what is that I saw as a spectator and where I could play my own role in this journey? If you look back historically, Institute of Science was built not by British, but by the then Tata, J.N. Tata, as an unborn child, and that's how it was embarrassing for British to accept to build science. So science was not a culture promoted by British rule. In 1900 in India, it was Maharaja of Mysore who gave the land, and is the money he gave, and British had to match. So you can see Indian Institute of Science could be one of the earliest birth, and then came J.C. Bose Institute, cultivation, a smaller institution. If you really historically look at, we did not pursue science in pre-independent India as a collective endeavor when world was awakening and doing this in Europe, America, big structures and activities. We were a poor nation. In 1942, as a war effort, the CSIR was born with a meager 10 lakh rupees deposit. So they had one expenditure. And it is only in 1947, due to persuasion of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, this was converted into a Council of Scientific Industrial Research when CSIR was dissolved. I had the privilege of reading early documents of how it was imagined and what was done. So sometime I realized when somebody asked me why there was Nobel Prize, I said the first priority was the nation needed to do something for the people of country. So entire institutions, even the institute I'm sitting today, glass and ceramic, were built with a purpose. We had to import porcelain, toilet, sink, everything. How do we make ourselves? So whether it was National Metallurgical Laboratory, National Chemical Laboratory, Glass and Ceramic Laboratory, all these institutions, the first 14 were built by Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar in a small period of about 9 years, in an extraordinary speed, which are linked to the industry in the beginning. So Indian science, when I look at the best mind of our students who came in 50s, there was a pride to do science. I'm sure Dr. Chidambaram will agree with me. The clarion call of the nation to bring young people to do science not only allowed some Indians to go abroad, 1,000 Indians to go abroad, learn, practice science and come back, plus also people came back. And these are the best mind of India. They were asked to build this nation. And these are the people who built the institutions which are the present, where our young generation have grown. And I'm also privileged to be part of that. So therefore, salute to those who took challenge to bring food to the hungry, get Amul baby food to every child of this. How did we happen? Just imagine, we have got independent. We have to start our election process. And the Nehru realizes that we have to import the ink to do the voting process. He goes to NPL and asks, can we do it? And within short period, the indelible ink was developed. And many of you will be surprised that even today, CSIR earns royalty out of that indelible ink because many countries, democratic countries, uses this today. Even COVID time, this was used to know to give quarantine, who has to go to quarantine. So you can see, then comes we had the buffaloes milk. We had a lot more buffaloes than cow. The world wanted us to import milk powder from Sweden and other places. Again, the government approached CFTRI and I think Dr. Subramanian, and they said, it is high-fat milk. Can we make milk powder using this high-fat milk? You have to imagine, there were no refrigerators in nobody's home. So therefore, a fresh milk reaching to the children were very difficult. So therefore, it is CFTRI who brought out early days to create milk powder that became the famous Amul milk powder. Because it was like a different technology when you handle high-fat milk. What I'm trying to say, in 50s, nation's focus to use his best mind not to make a discovery, but to find solutions to the problem that were challenging. And so then we start building institutions. We built IITs in 56, 57, 60, and each IIT was built with a hope that these are the people who are gifted, who will be lifted, and they will lift the rest. If you know about MIT, I'm addressing I hope some of the students of IITs are listening to me. You know, I have gone to MIT. The Route 128 of MIT is created. It's like if you take Route 128 of MIT, around the technologies that has come out of MIT, the industries that has grown, its GDP may be larger than some countries. So how come when I go to IIT Kanpur or IIT Kharagpur, that roads around, people are so poor? When 50,000 students over years have gone up and down to the railway station, why they haven't solved it? So therefore, our premise that we will lift the gifted and gifted will lift the rest, this did not happen. So our first model failed, that we focused on institutions to build very ivory towers and institutions, which actually got disconnected from what nation needs. So we were not lucky. But then what happened? Then came 70s. I'm sure many of you were not born, but some of the faculties were born by 70 who are there listening to me. In Bangladesh war, till that time we were getting PL 480 wheat, and we were depending on American PL 480 things. So the wheat will come and then hungry Indians will get food. We were still poor. We had to stand in the queue for kerosene. We didn't have enough milk until the Korean made a difference and we became the milk surplus. So you can see we were focused, institutions and individuals were focused to solve the problems. It's like a lower middle class nation who cannot have a larger aspiration of doing science. Same time, you have Govind Sarup sitting in TIFA is dreaming of building the largest radio telescopes in the world. Amazing. When I read this book on life matters, this book, Space, Life Matter, I actually get surprised that how this imagination of scientists like Govind Sarup could actually think and dream. Imagine Vikram Sarabhai thinking about India will be a space power. He hasn't seen it happen, but it has happened. So it is important today not to be bogged down by what we don't have, but what we can have. The aspiration and imagination was never bogged down by the economic status of this nation or the people. But the best mind has to work on it. Now, if you look at 1958 first policy, science policy, it clearly states that scientists are the nation's asset. And by making scientists the nation asset, like as known, I can tell you, I used to tell Dr. Bhargava that those days, if you go to Times of India matrimonial in 60s, you will see the requirement that says Indian Foreign Service or scientists. You know why? A good boy is a potential foreign service and scientist because that time dollar had high value. The scientists were the only other people than Indian Foreign Service who could actually go abroad and bring some dollars, because if you have dollar, you can buy a Bajaj Chetak scooter, you can get a gas out of line, you can get a telephone number, all these things, materialistic things you could get. So scientists were of high value. Came 70s, the nation was faced with, one side Pokhran, another side we demonstrated our strength, and second time we just went to war and liberated Bangladesh. So we had a severe sanction from US, PL 480 was withdrawn, and the Nature wrote that 10 million Indians will go hungry, and front page, and then Mrs. Gandhi called scientist. So again, you can see the leadership is an important component. So scientists cannot do all by itself. Their leadership has to have a faith. And the relationship between Nehru and the Bhatnagar created so many institutions. This demand on scientists that we have to do some problem solving, we have to produce the food surplus. 5 years later, so it is the role of Swaminathan and team, Indian Agricultural Research Institute, that played a role. And we became, in 5 years later, the same nature rights from begging bowl to bread basket. Now, what did CSIR do? That time we didn't have tractors. We were importing tractors. So CMNI Durgapur was asked to build tractors, and that built the tractor, which was called Swaraj. So again, this name was given because it was told that we got freedom from hunger. And this freedom from hunger, the real Swaraj, not the 1947 independence alone. Same time, we needed pesticides. We needed catalysts to produce things, and NCL was producing those. So there was a glass barrier. The world was controlling catalysts. Nobody can break through. But then National Chemical Laboratory of CSIR came up. So what I'm trying to say, in 70s, we were denied supercomputer. I'm sure Chidambaram will remember. IBM went away. When IBM went away, we asked Coca-Cola to go. Then CFTI came with thumbs up. So we have always been trying to solve problems. And that's how the Param, that's how the flow solver, all these computers were built. And they actually allowed our space program, atomic energy program, and even atomic energy supercomputer, I think in Hyderabad, I've forgotten. All this actually allowed what you enjoy today when you watch an IPL. The transponders have gone up. We feel secured because we are able to communicate. We can handle tsunami. We can handle typhoon. So you can see the Indian science, post-independent, till 90, was busy solving problems. It is like elder brother of a family which parents are very poor. He cannot have aspiration, and his job and role will be to see how the entire family can be protected. He can be the breadwinner, and that is what Indian science did post-independence, first 40 years. As I said, I wish our IITs created human resource, and we gave about $1 trillion of human resource to the United States and created Silicon Valley's support system. We are glad that people like Shantanu are in this country. We have several people like Ashutosh Sharma is in this country, many people who are in this country. And that's what I say, 10% of those people, including Narayan Murthy's of India, who made what it is today. So we actually worked with a 10% of our strength. I often call Indian science is an outcome of a toned milk where the cream has been given away to Silicon Valley. Now, still you can make good yogurt on toned milk. You can still make a good lassi, and still you can make a good ice cream. So therefore, my story is, and I was not lucky to have those associations of the great scientists of the past, but I was very lucky to land up in G.N. Ramachandran's laboratory in 70s. When I met him, I had very little idea how big his contribution was. I again going back and imagine 1950s. Here is a young man of 29 years old who was a student of C.V. Raman, goes to Madras, and he wants to solve a structure. What is the situation? We have the the alpha helix of hair structure has been solved, the fibers protein. The double helix of the DNA has been solved. And he is looking for a problem, and he took up the largest protein in the body called collagen, his triple helical structure. What an audacity that you have to build a Radenhouse generator. You have to build a generator yourself. Look at the compare with the Francis Crick and Watson. They had the Rosalind Franklin, already the X-ray from Bragg's laboratory. They had already Chargaff's principle. So based on this, but G.N. Ramachandran had nothing. He had depended on CSIR, to get a red tendon collagen and could take a diffraction, which is very poor. I was lucky to work on them subsequently. And then he could predict every third residue has to be glycine from pure composition, and the triple helical structure was modeled. Look at the courage and imagination. Take the inspiration. I tell to the young people, look at this and take that in. So I got that inspiration that nothing is a problem if you have courage to challenge problems and take up science. So I was lucky that I was given a research problem to solve how hydroxyproline stabilizes collagen. And I was very glad to say I could figure out during my PhD that how actually hydroxyproline, why scurvy disease happens, and why hydroxylation of proline is important in collagen, and how it imparts triple helical stability. I take this pride to say to young generation that in 70s, we could do that science and publish this paper in Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences. So, there is nothing that you cannot do if you do not aspire. So I saw Shashi and I'm sure Chidambaram will recall, his courage to challenge the double helical structure of right-handed Denix, can it be left-handed? Yes, Alex Rich brought out a crystal structure left-handed. So the courage to challenge the established paradigm and then take it up and see whether you can create novelty in the work is what I learned as a spectator and as a small player. GNR's discoveries of triple helical structure of collagen led to the discovery of Phi-Psi map, which became the hallmark, even today it's the hallmark of a protein crystal structure solution. I always wondered, what was the difference between Francis Crick and Watson versus G.N. Ramachandran and Shashekaran? So I realized that Francis Crick and Watson were sitting in Cambridge surrounded by biologists. G.N. Ramachandran and Shashekaran were sitting in Madras, then in Bangalore, not necessarily surrounded by colleagues and friends of biology. So if you read the paper of Nature, Francis Crick says, it has not escaped our notice. The structure of double helical structure of DNA will explain hereditary and genetic transformation. Whereas G.N. Ramachandran did not say, it has not escaped our notice, that if every third residue of collagen, one glycine is replaced by another amino acid, there will be a genetic disorder. It's only Janesh did the transgenic mice and demonstrated that a single mutation in one glycine residue will completely destroy the structure of collagen. So therefore, I learned it is important to work with the biologists while you are a structural biology or physicist, and you have to learn and eventually learn to work with geneticists. Now, so I had the privilege of working in a poor country in 70s, then developing countries in 90s. So the question became, if you look at the DNA structure, You realize in Francis Crick in 1980 told, and Crick and Orgel wrote a Nature paper and said that the all repetitive DNA are junk. And junk DNA has no function. And junk DNA, any effort to identify function of the junk DNA is not only futile, but intellectually sterile. I was a young faculty at Molecular Biophysics Unit. I read this paper. I was working on polypeptides and repetitive DNA structure. And I believe that a structural variability of DNA on a sequence-dependent fashion, as proposed by Shekharan, can only be experimentally proved if one works on those regions of the genome, both synthetic and natural. So what did I think? I thought, if this is true, if Francis Crick and Orgel is true, then it's okay. I tried to work on it and didn't work. But if they're not true, then I will be breaking grounds and we can create a new field. And I'm glad to say that a large many years of work, 20 years of work, 30 years of work with Dr. Mitali Mukherjee has written down in an article that which our work on repetitive DNA actually led to the development of genetic tests, neurological disorder, and in 90s, we realized that repetitive DNA instability causes both cancer as well as repetitive DNA expansion could cause to neurological disorder. And I'm very proud to say this work was taken from Indian Institute of Science all the way to Center for Biochemical Technology, which is known today as Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology. So what did I say? That you don't have to be bogged down just because the most tolerant person. So in 80s, I heard Sidney Brenner, and Sidney Brenner in his talk said the same thing, that don't get bogged down by a tall person saying something. He said even Francis Crick could not predict splicing. He said even in front of Francis Crick, he was telling that even Francis Crick could not predict splicing. So therefore, you have never ever accept what is the dogma in biology, continue to go ahead and do. So I recall today Partha Majumdar is there. So can we do ordinary scientists to do extraordinary science? And my learning is from ISRO. ISRO do not have large number of IITs or brilliant MIT scientists, but large number of Indian engineers and scientists who have done extraordinary job. And I'm sure if you have seen the movie Mangalyaan, you will understand that what extraordinary job was done by space scientists to send and utilize the gravitational forces between the Earth and the Mars. So, you know, this sort of brilliant science was not, what I meant until 90s, we were struggling to do science with limited resource, solving our problems. 90s, India became liberal, and we opened up economy. And it's my perception, maybe right, may not be wrong, maybe wrong, that the best mind of India suddenly realized that we should move to do things where we can earn more money. And it took away the India's success in information technology, also took away large number of scientists, engineers who could have become a PhD and all away. So my learning from CSIR, I could see the number of people who retired who were IIT doctorate and CSIR scientists retiring. We did not get IIT doctorate coming in. I can tell you, Gagan Pratap, JEE topper, did PhD in aerospace. But we didn't get a JEE topper to come. You know, only JEE topper we have is Anurag Agarwal in Indian science, who is a CBSE topper. So you actually lost best of our scientists' potential who could have fetched Nobel Prize in 90s to 2005 when when the infrastructure started better, when the investment was better, when leadership of Chidambaram, Mashelka, so many people made sure that a lot more money comes to the system. C.N.R. Rao made sure. So therefore, this is a dichotomy. We suddenly got a lot of resources. We got computers, we got everything, open economy, we could import chemicals, everything happened. But suddenly we lost our best mind not coming to science. So this brought me to 2005. 2005, we created large number of ISRs, and there was a huge expansion of IIT system. And my belief, this attracted a very strong, brilliant students. So by the time I moved to Delhi and became aspirational to build genomics in this country, again, I'll show you an example. In, I think Dr. Chidambaram will recall, India made the first color black and white television in Siri Pilani, and ECL was the one who manufactured and put it into Prime Minister's office. I looked at the note, that the Planning Commission note, which said there were proposals to make color television, and the idea was there is no future for color television in India, nobody will buy, so we did not pursue. So, but today every home has a color television and made in Korea or Japan or in China. So our policy failure leads to scientist aspirational fall, and scientist gives up and goes away from the system. Same thing happened in solar energy. In 1970s, NPL was holding more patent in solar energy than many, many developed world. Unfortunately, we did not think the solar energy will be important, and it was not pursued. In 1995, genomics was in the air. I was very fortunate to get a part of the, I saw in 85, I was in Charles Cantor's laboratory in a summer, and there the genomics was born. I could, why Charles the Lazy called them and to figure it out what genomics will be the future. I was shocked to see how people were dreaming of a project of a $3 billion, when we could do hardly 200 nucleotides of DNA sequencing. We're talking about 3 billion nucleotide sequencing. This imagination was so large. I saw Andrei Mirzabekov thinking of a chip of hexanucleotide, which will actually solve the sequencing. I saw Edward Southern printing oligonucleotide on glass slides. I saw Charles Cantor as a head of DOE genomics project. So I was very fortunate that I came across these brilliant people in late 80s. And I was elected to Hugo in 1990. I was very fortunate that Hugo decided that genome should not become a proprietary and lead to a Cold War, and the information should be shared. So the elected people across the world, and if I recall correct, me and Dr. Notani were the first two Indians were inducted into Hugo elected. I was lucky because Andrei Mirzabekov of Russia became, and the Charles Cantor of America were the vice presidents of the Russia and America, and both were very closely, so I was interacting with them. As a result, I was elected. I had the privilege of the information flow. There was no gene bank, there was no internet data like this, so we used to have newsletters. So why I'm saying this, in 1995, I was dreaming of genomics in India. I could visualize that the genomics play a big role in 20 years down the road. Unfortunately, at the Indian Institute of Science, when we made a proposal for 9th plan to build a genomic center, many scientists felt that this is a technical thing, it has no future. So I had only 2 votes out of 54 votes, and the idea was dropped. But I didn't want to drop that idea. I believed, I actually got a job in Max Planck, Göttingen. I could have run away, but I thought, what will my grandchildren think? That you knew 20 years later genomics would be important for the nation, and you went away. So I decided to shift from beautiful, salubrious weather of Bangalore to hostile weather of Delhi and take a small institute called Center for Biochemical Technology and to build the Institute of Genomics, what you know today, Integrative Biology. It would not have happened if Indian trained Mitali Mukherjee, Debashish Das, Beena Pillai would not have joined CBT. They joined with a belief that India can do it. None of them went abroad. None of them were trained to, they've never seen those machines that we brought. We imagined that there'll be robots, there'll be machines, there'll be large number of sequencers. And we were lucky that Department of Biotechnology, Manju Sharma, believed in us and actually supported us. And Dr. Mashelkar has the confidence to let a small institute of CBT undertake this courageous journey to build Institute of Genomics. And today you all know, in the post-pandemic era, how that institute has done. When in 200 days, the Feluda diagnostics and MD-check, Tata MD-check was developed, some people say, wow. I said, yes. You know, it was a story. A Picasso was sitting in a cafe. A small girl came and asked, can you sketch my face? So Picasso said, okay. He sketched something in 3 minutes and gave her. And then girl said, can I have it? He said, 1 million francs, 1 million franc. He said, 1 million franc for this 3 minutes work? He said, yes, but behind is my 70 years of experience. So it is 20 years of effort to build genomics at IGIB is actually paid off 200 days of developing diagnostics or to do genomic surveillance, sequencing, everything to do, provide India, whether it is the Omicron or Deltacron or Alpha, BA, B2, all these exercises is exactly. So, you know, I always believed that we can't do actually kills more dreams than anything else. It can't be done. So India cannot do it. So I tell to the young people, just don't listen to the old people. Don't listen to anybody who tells you that it cannot be done. 34 unicorns have been formed this year from startup. Who believed it when government announced that we will be a startup nation? Stand-up nation, startup nation. Everybody made ridicule. I've seen television making fun. Okay, so look at it, what we have done wonders. So therefore, don't listen to anybody say that you cannot do it. I am telling this for the young people. Then what happened? I'm sure Partha will recall, we wanted to build the genetic landscape of India. Partha and I sitting in Calcutta, we had a bet. Can we do it in 5 years? He said, it's impossible in this country. But I'm glad that I own that bet. And with 158 co-authored paper, 2 papers, with 24 PI, we actually built the genetic landscape of India, the first nation to build a complete comprehensive map. I'm sure Partha in his talk maybe mentioned some of this work. What is interesting is, if you go to Calcutta Museum, an anthropology department, the last panel, it actually shows that paper, which was published in Journal of Genetics, because it was not accepted in India. Last minute, Nature Genetics rejected it. So we published in Indian Journal of Genetics, in the academic journal. So what? It has been more cited than any papers, I think, published in that journal. So therefore, I believe it is Indian science has come of age in 2005. It is the young generation of ISR students, new generation of IIT students who believe that they can make a difference. So those unicorns has come of those 90s, those who could have become scientists but decided to become engineers, IT, entrepreneur, make money, and then eventually they're making unicorns. So it is 2005 ISR students. Last 20 years, 15 years, the students that we produce, they are the future. This is where we have invested money on the best mind, giving them best facilities and best people who actually can fetch international recognition, solve big national problems while solving big global problems. So in 2007, I realized that the entire healthcare sector is actually controlled by large pharmaceutical industries. You know, I don't know how many of you realize that India is the pharmacy of the world. Today, I'm sure when the vaccine came, you have seen how much criticism happened for Covaxin. because it is indigenously developed. But now we all know that Covaxin gets a very good protection even with the variation, and that's why I took Covaxin and not any other vaccine. But people were saying, oh, we should get Pfizer vaccine. So, it is Indian scientists itself. Leaders actually do not support Indian science. So therefore, I will say to Indian scientists and young scientists, just don't listen to them. This incident happened in 2007 when I came up with the idea that we should do open source drug discovery. Otherwise, nobody's going to put money for $300 million TB drug or any drug, and we should go open source. Now, where did I learn this? Look at the open source Linux as created today. Large all supercomputers of the 95% of the world, supercomputers run on open source Linux. So therefore, it is not that you cannot do business, but it creates an opportunity of crowdsourcing scientific knowledge, sharing it, and eventually collectively solve problems. So open source drug discovery, when it started, 2007, everybody said it will not work, it's not going to work. But one person, when it was published in Wall Street Journal, a talk of mine, Dr. William Hasseltine sent me a mail and said, wow, what a brilliant idea. He is a Harvard professor. He's the richest molecular biologist of the world who made lots of money. So when he wrote the mail, I was sure that I'm not going to be wrong. And today I'm very proud to say that it became the world's largest crowdsource platform. It created a movement of open source. And there are so many open source programs initiated. It brought young generation of students interested in science. It created a new model of education and training. And if you look at today, even Bill Gates, after 10 years, says that open source model is the only way academia and those. He tweeted it. I'm sure Mashelka retweeted and said, when India thought about it, SKB thought about it, everybody said it will not work. So today, if you look at COVID pandemic, in 2020, whole world realized the power of open source, power of sharing. We got our vaccines developed within such a short period. Diagnostics developed, sequences were shared, data was shared. By Nature, Lancet, everybody opened up their portals to share. Any COVID data was shared. Nobody had to buy a journal to access to those data. So open source drug discovery, what was looked to be absurd, actually today is a reality. So I still say, I'm very glad that I had G.N. Ramachandran, Shashi Shekharan as a model who believed that you can challenge paradigms and keep doing world-class science. And I'm very lucky that the system provided me the opportunity, because by the time I became Director General CSIR, the OSDD was approved. So it was very easy for me to initiate and execute it. I don't know if there was somebody else as the Director General, whether I would have got the approval to get it done, but I can tell you it still would have happened. So the difference is, original sanction, we had about 500 crore, Dr. Chidambaram, but I was so nervous that as a DG CSIR, if I put that much money, so we decided to spend only 50 crores. And the result that we have got is global. And there was a study implemented by WHO, and Professor So asked me, he just did that report, but he said, I'll not mention the money. If I mention the whole thing has been done in $12 million, then we'll have a serious problem of getting research grant in the United States. So therefore, it is possible. So I was lucky to grow and see that how giants played their games. I'm sure Virat Kohli saw Sachin Tendulkar. Sachin Tendulkar saw Sunil Gavaskar. I was lucky to see those talents, and I could play small role. So where is the next we go? Ashutosh Sharma is talking about the future in the present. I think future is very bright. What we should do is hand over the baton to the younger generation. We have created a lot of startups, but our academia is not connected to them. We will have a lot of startups get created which will solve social problems. I call CSIR 800, the problems for 800 million Indians that we need to be solving. I think government has created lots of opportunity in agrotech, AI application, drone application. So all this has a great future. Application of artificial intelligence and digital healthcare is going to be the great future. Why I'm saying this? But India provides a great access to 1 billion people's healthcare. With $36 billion of government expenditure and $30 billion from pocket, $36 billion, you cannot solve $1.3 billion healthcare problem. So therefore, we cannot go Western way. Our healthcare problem has to be solved in an indigenous way. So we need to create innovative solutions. We need to take up integrated healthcare so that we actually go into preventive care and wellness rather than only curative care. So therefore, E4 medicine with health continuum and convergence of traditional medicine and knowledge, making food as a healthcare substitute. You replace the drugs and pharmaceutical. Which I tell this, you go back and see how Dr. Rama Rao and Hamid had a collaboration to bring down the AIDS drugs price. We didn't have antibiotics in 70s. We had to import. Today, we are the largest producer of antibiotics and all medicines, generic medicines. So it was the absolute fabulous collaboration between IICT scientists, CDRI, NSCL, along with Ciplas and Hamids and of the world to make a difference. The way Serum Institute has done. I was very proud to say that my student from Institute of Science, who is R&D head in Serum Institute, was in the frontier to make the vaccine production. So one has to be. So I see. Whereas the one young boy who worked with me in Mohali, ISAR, is working at Oxford on the upstream part of the vaccine, very early days. So these students of ISARs, when they are back in India, as they are coming back, and the facilities that we have created, the facilities that under the leadership of our scientific advisors and government has produced, and people like this DG CSIR and the Secretary DST like Ashutosh Sharma, who has done things, Ramaswamy, several of them, I think will have a large impact. I think we can start expecting science of world class by 2030, and then hopefully, I don't know whether we'll be alive to see a science that goes recognized. But we don't have to worry about recognition of the West. As long as we can bring innovative solutions for the millions of Indians, I would be happy to see a proud Indian scientist and say, there is no poverty in this country. We have, through science and technology, I want Jodhpur IIT to make the roads around no poverty. If Jodhpur can take a decision that we will give solutions, that Rajasthan will have no poverty, we'll bring the neighboring states no poverty. Each IIT takes the oath, the students take the oath that we will make sure our technology and knowledge will make a difference for the millions and 1 billion people of the nation. With this hope, I want to say 28th February, let's celebrate and say, let these young people of India make a difference for the billion of this nation. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the audience to speak. Thank you.